So guys, I this is kind of a last minute organised chat. This is Mappy Thorns. Myself and Matt recently chatted through the VIP vocology and practice training pathway, which is for like vocal coaches who are training basically on anatomy and artistry and all different kinds of things. And this month, coincidentally, we're studying artistry. So myself and Matt bonded over the fact that we both had the same pen and over artistry just at the weekend. So we just decided we might as well
Yeah.
have a chat, and it's of interest to anyone who's following my page. So Matt, do you want to tell people a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Hi guys. Thanks Rebecca for bringing me on. This is great. Yeah. So a little bit about me. I joined VIP kind of last year. We did some conferences together and stuff, and I kind of got into coaching and artist development through kind of a bit of a weird scattered approach. I've obviously been a singer since I was young. Kind of started in kind of classical music and being a chorister and so on, and then kind of made my way through performing arts and into kind of contemporary music, which is obviously where I kind of mainly reside now. And yeah, started coaching a couple of years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago. Before then, I was working in recording studios, so kind of more on the production side. But I think that's why I've got an interest in artist development because I kind of see how some of the pieces fit together. But I wanted to obviously also look at coaching, and I have a deep passion and interest in the voice, and how magical an instrument that is, and the things that go on behind the scenes with the voice as well as kind of with artist development. So yeah, that's why it'd be great for us to have a chat today because we had quite an interesting little chat, didn't we, a couple of days ago?
Yeah, I know it's a really interesting month because I feel like with artistry, it kind of brings in lots of different elements that you've kind of gathered through life, through life experiences and different courses that you've done, and your vocal coach training and your performance experience, and all these different experiences you find yourself in, and situations you find yourself in, as someone who's interested in the music industry. And I'm just curious to know, what how did you end up getting into the production and that kind of side of things, as opposed to going down the artist road yourself?
Yeah, it's a good question actually because it kind of involves a little bit of going down the artist road, but also I was at uni, and at the time I was doing two things at once, which is like I was studying kind of like opera sort of classical baritone singing, and but at the same time I also had a band, and we were kind of doing funk and rock, so kind of quite opposite sides. One I was kind of um, you know already quite experienced and did a lot of, and then kind of my other passion for kind of like funk and rock and soul and so on was something that was just kind of something that I loved and something that I wanted to also do and also kind of have as a part of my performing expression. So when I was obviously in a band, you meet up a garage sort of studio setup, and we just kind of got into recording just through trying to you know do the act of songwriting and getting our own material ready to perform. So we'd record some sessions, and that kind of started to spike my interest a little bit. And I think as a frontman in a band, sometimes you're a bit like, if all you're doing is singing, you kind of feel a bit like everyone else is kind of doing something with an instrument and they're kind of messing around. So I kind of got into the kind of production side from, I guess, trying to also find another thing to be able to do in the band. And there are far better people that know loads about engineering, but I think from the creative aspect of production and working out kind of the process of a song and how that kind of goes from a live kind of, we just had the inspiration, we've been doing songwriting, to kind of moving into, right, how do we get this into that kind of recorded context, and what elements do we have to, to use and to play with. And I think that's kind of what really spiked my interest, would be kind of being in a band and doing it yourself, DIY, right?
I think that's so interesting, that you said that you ended up getting into the production stuff because you felt like that you wanted to have something else to do other than just singing. And I feel like that's such a thing for singers to
Mm.
feel a little bit redundant sometimes in a band. Obviously, we sing in the band and we tend to be the center of the band when we're doing live stuff. But sometimes we do feel a little bit left out. And I know sometimes I hold on to my tambourine tightly and it makes me feel like great. I'm holding on to my tambourine in the practice. But it's really
Yeah.
interesting that you went down the production side because you felt like it just would give you another skill to kind of contribute in a band situation.
Exactly, and I think when you kind of step out into the big bad world of trying to get your feet into the music industry, I think I saw having production as a skill as kind of another string to the bow, another asset, and that's why I was like, right, I'm just gonna go to London and hand my CV in at various random studios and pretend to be one of the studios I ended up working for. I actually pretended that I had like a parcel for them, and I kind of went in and like, this is classic me fashion. I'll just kind of like,
Love
force myself in and be like, "Hey, I'm here,"
it.
sort of thing, and hope that they wouldn't take badly to it. But yeah, they did have a spare minute, and that's why I ended up kind of working in the studios in London for kind of over a year, and then out the back of that, I kind of realised I was missing something from that kind of only being in a studio, kind of a recording studio environment, which is very much like artist comes in, they've got a track that's ready, and then they'll record it. And this studio was, it wasn't like the most prestigious, but very also professional. Like we had people coming in from film and TV to do like voice recording. It was one of those kind of studios of everything type thing.
Hmm.
But when artists would come in and they think they'd have kind of their EP project ready, I was working a lot of the time, kind of helping them overcome issues in the studio and kind of feeling confident in that environment and getting the most out of them, being in a good headspace, and also being able to kind of perform and go through that side of things. And I realized from my side I was not doing as much singing, so I wanted to get back into singing. And I thought, what better way to do that than to actually help people with their singing, because that's kind of, I saw that was part of what I was adding value to people. It was like that nurturing, that kind of support, mentor.
Mm.
And also, because I'd been a singer, I'd been there, I'd kind of been through the process, learned it myself. And then, it just only seemed natural to kind of get into coaching. And then I set up music alignment, which is kind of more about a 360 approach to artist development, like looking at your sound, your influence, and your business, and kind of trying to balance those three things out together and work them as kind of, a three musketeers type thing.
I love it. Like I love talking to people about how they got into what they got into,
Mm,
and like you went into a studio and got a bit of experience in the studio, and we often see ourselves in other people, or we see ourselves in situations and we go, "Oh, that's me. There, that's where I could be."
yeah,
And then you take that and you take the confidence that you've built and the experience that you've, gained from that situation, and just take your own start your own project, because obviously a lot of us have an entrepreneurial streak as well, and we want to be in
yeah,
control of what we're doing ourselves, and we want to like make our vision come true. And we almost see what we like in one situation. Like you obviously saw something that you liked in the studio, but as
yeah,
you said, now you've expanded that to like what you say, a 360 approach. And
yeah.
I know we chatted, was it last weekend, and I was showing you like my little pie chart that I did as I was reflecting on life after
You
COVID.
were, yeah, yeah,
And you kind of you split your life into the different sections, like money,
yeah.
career, and whatever it is. And I feel like that's kind of on the in the realm of what you're doing. But can you tell us about what are the slices of your pizza in that? What's on your pizza? What are
Yeah,
those categories that you work with an artist?
100%. Well, it kind of, only dawned on me recently, kind of what I think are like important facets to have as as an artist, and kind of looking at that balanced picture, like you said, like the pie chart or whatever. Like I feel like you're doing best when all of those things are kind of in balance, right? And obviously the finite resource you have is just your time and your effort. So if you can try and devote a little bit of time and effort to each of them, maybe not all at the same time, but definitely like thinking about like, what do I need to address more or less. I think people sometimes think like, yeah, I'm really bad at business and marketing, but it's like, yeah, but why is that important, or how does that kind of relate to you in your artistry and so on. So yeah, those kind of the little kind of pie chart of things, I came up with 7 kind of principles that I think work really well when you're kind of either starting out or you're trying to work out maybe where you have a problem in the first place.
So
And
this could be like a band that like has just formed. They have like maybe a set of songs at any stage, demo stage, or maybe they're ready to go into the studio with it, or they think they are, and then
yeah,
they come to you because they're like they just need that little bit of something extra, and then this is what you
yeah,
have from
like a
it.
bit of a kind of guidance to go along with it.
Hmm.
You know, I think it's like we were kind of talking about. There's so much to do. Like it's not if this is why record labels existed in the first place, because it's a whole business, right? It's not just, yes, it's the art and the creativity and that expression, and that is what underpins it all, because that's like the product or whatever, or that's what people connect with. That's what the beautiful part of music is. But in order for that to get from me here with that guitar song to your ears and whatever, that's a whole you know quantum leap in between there, and trying to do all that
Hmm.
yourself can be quite difficult. So sometimes that's why people have managers or whatever. And I kind of coming in at the artist development side, because usually that's what record labels used to do, right? They would kind of hedge their bets and kind of have a bit more money to invest in, because obviously record business was had a lot of money in it then, which it still has, but it's kind of not quite the same equation. So I'm coming in here and I'm trying to break down what that process was a little bit. So I would say like three things to kind of think about at first to balance before we kind of look at maybe some principles, whatever, would be
Hmm.
that sound, which kind of breaks down into like your songwriting, your performing, and your production. Like those three things within your sound are so important to who you are as an artist or as a group, right? If your
Hmm.
songwriting is on point, or you're working with other songwriters, then that's great. You've kind of got that initial thing. Then it's like translating that into making a really mesmerizing performance. Like how do you kind of get through that and make that something that is, because eventually this is going to be part of your your career asset. Like, oh, they're really good performers. Oh, the music they make is fantastic.
Hmm.
And part of that kind of final piece is like production in the sound side of the kind of the three core pillars is what I call it. You've got like sound, influence, and business.
Yeah.
um, and yeah, so having the production kind of ties between the two of the performing. You've got performance production, you've kind of got songwriting production, and then that's kind of the overall thing. In your kind of the influence, I'd say that you're looking at kind of like what is the culture that you're working with? Like what is your audience like? What how do they relate? What are you offering them? Why are they coming to you specifically?
Who are
And
you
which
speaking
sometimes
to?
kind of puts people on the back foot. So like I don't know, I just exactly.
Hmm.
And that is ultimately why people listen to you at the end of the day. And people sometimes think, well, they just listen to you because they just listen to you. But like, there's always more than just that sort of basic answer. So trying to like work out, what is it like? Why did I identify with you? Why do you identify with them? That kind of like music is cultural. It is that kind of like thing that we flock to, that we kind of say, I'm a Grateful Dead fan, I'm a Deadhead, and that like comes with a pride, and that comes with obviously the music, but also the culture of the musicians and all that sort of thing. And then yeah, right at the end you've got business, right, which is kind of like, what value do you create for people? Why do they come to you? Why are they going to be paying for that experience, right? Whether it be a live thing, or whether it be a recorded interaction, or whether it be some other kind of inventive idea that you've got, that's kind of another offer of yours, like part of the wider asset. Like you could look at it basically like maybe some merchandise or some other product or some other kind of experience that you guys do, and that people only come to you for because it's a meaning that's in that kind of that listener, that fan. It's something that's kind of valuable to them, that they want to come and they can only get from you, sort of thing. So it's kind of thinking about it a little bit existentially and then
Hmm.
trying to apply it in practically.
And how do you find, in general, working with different artists? How they're which areas of that kind of chart or those pillars would you find that people struggle with the most? Because I feel like I know so many amazing musicians who have not a single bit of business side to them at all. They just don't think of that stuff. They don't want to know about it.
Yeah,
They don't. It just makes them anxious. It's just not for them. They just want to just focus on the creative
yeah.
stuff. But I think in this day and
Mhm.
age, we do need to be able to kind of self manage and self promote to an extent. But a lot of people
Amen.
don't want to do it. So,
Yeah, it's exactly. It's difficult. People are clutching on to what they're scared of what they don't know, i.e., They're scared of having to try and do this business thing on their own a little bit to start off with anyway, right? Because before people are interested in you, and this is just sad reality of it, but you need to have already done your own stage of artist development.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that be like looking at being that kind of full 360 package, or whatever you want to say, people that, you'll hear people in the industry say, oh yeah, they're the real deal, they're the full package, it's everything, because these groups have really thought about what they're offering, and they really have kind of condensed their own uniqueness into something that kind of people straight away they say, right, that's that group or that's that group. And I think when your question with like, where do you see people kind of falling down the most, I think, or getting themselves in a kerfuffle, it would be looking at like the business or the marketing, and I think it's because they see that as like somebody else's job, or boring, or not relatable. But then you have to find a way to connect with that, because it is so important nowadays. We are kind of, for better or for worse, a little bit more self-contained when it comes to launching our own careers and businesses. That's this kind of, I think we live in an age where we're very enabled. We've got YouTube, we've got all these platforms to learn, to share, to grow. And it's like thinking about how can we use some of them, not all of them necessarily, because there's so many options out there. It's almost like
Overwhelming.
paralyzing. So like where do I actually start? So yeah, I think all stems from the best place to look at a lot is kind of like your artistic influence and identity, because from there you can branch off into sound and business kind of aspects, because if you really know who you are at the core value, at the base root, then the motivation to do all those other things will come out naturally. I think artists are they're hyper aware, and it's why people go to see Adele's or Ed Sheeran's, because those people, they know who they are and they're themselves unashamedly, and people go to witness those people because it enables them to feel themselves. There's that kind of comfort, or it doesn't even have to be like that. It could be a heavy metal artist like like Lemmy, Motorhead. Like, you just knew that he was a kick-ass rebel, and you could go there and you could feel free when you go and see somebody like that, because like you just can mosh out and just kind of get into it. So all these artists, they are kind of iconic in our lives, and it's like, how have they become iconic? Like, they won't all have sat down straight away and maybe thought like, who am I at an artistic level, right? It's kind of a little bit like Plato sitting there. Like, it's not quite like that's how you should start, but always consider it, because it will motivate you and it will drive you to do the things that you're trying to do, at least.
I know, like, even if I think of myself and kind of, as you said, the artist journey that I have been on or I'm going on or whatever, it's very difficult sometimes to be confident in your own identity, in a sense. You're like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like you have to kind of love yourself a little bit, and like, not in a kind of a vain way, but you have to kind of really be accepting of your own self before you
hmm
can put yourself out there and then allow others to connect with you in that way.
Yeah.
Because
You
as I
have
said
to have
earlier,
self-worth. You have to know what you're worth. You have to know, and that is a
yeah,
kind of a form of love, right? Because you kind of, know it, you identify it. Sorry, anyway, I cut in there.
no, cut in all you like, you're the guest, I want to hear from you. They're sick of listening to me talking. Another way you just get these little antidotes dotes in your head. But yeah, I think there's a lot of artists who are so creative, but they're like, they maybe are a little bit shy or just not that confident in putting themselves out there. So like, how would you help an artist like that with that? How would you help them
Good,
overcome that?
good question. Yeah, good question. So I think like when you're trying to like initiate that initial confidence, you've got to think about things that matter to you, that actually like are going to get you out and get you speaking, or things you're passionate about. I think when you follow a passion, the confidence comes quite naturally.
Mm.
And obviously you have to be kind of, take a leap of faith to kind of speak out about the things that you are passionate about, because some people may think, oh, this is kind of weird, and those are actually exactly the things you need to talk about. Things that make you weird,
Mm.
that make you stand out. And I don't mean like, superficially. You don't have to just come up with, having a crazy hairstyle, or just,
Wearing your clothes inside out.
because, you know, yeah, exactly. You're not clickbait, right? You're
Hmm.
not trying to kind of do that, which a lot of pop artists do to provoke and so on. Um, but really, those strong artistic types, they stand up for the things that they kind of really believe in. And that doesn't necessarily have to be like rights and all this. I don't think some people think you have to have a deeply profound thing to have to say about yourself, but I don't think it is. I think it's just like, because you're always becoming something else. You're always kind of, you're never static as a person. So how can you be fully defined and then be like, this is what I stand for? It's kind of like right now, and those artists that really stand the test of time are those ones that they really do kind of develop the persona. They really do kind of move forward, like David Bowie, and there's so many iterations of who they are, and there comes a fearlessness with that, and you do have to kind of suck it up, embrace the fear that is going to be you being an artist, right? You've got to roll with it, and but you'll get that feedback as soon as you kind of put that out there. People come straight back at you, and they're like, "Wow, I just love who you are, or how you are, or why you're doing those sorts of things." And they're those really captivating artists, and they kind of, not they don't know they're doing it, because they're aware of who they are, so they kind of do know they're doing it. They're not putting it on, but they're just like, they've come to terms with who they are, or who they're trying to be, or whatever. So I think that is where you kind of get confidence. It's just like, try being fearless, try putting yourself out there. It's going to be a leap. You're going to be vulnerable. If you don't like being, vulnerable, then it's going to be hard for people to connect with you, because there needs to be that kind of aspect that people get. So I
Oh,
think that's it. Yeah.
I think that's such a good point, to like allow yourself to be vulnerable, because I
Mm.
think sometimes we think we have to be kind of like superheroes and like have this really, be really confident in ourselves all the time and be perfect all the time, and sometimes we hold ourselves back because we think we can't put anything out there if it's not perfect. And sometimes people like to see the imperfections, because they they're imperfect. People are imperfect. We're all imperfect,
Yeah.
so we have to embrace that side of ourselves. And even when I think of like art, so one of the first artists that I kind of noticed was James Vincent McMorrow. Do you know that guy?
No, I don't actually. Tell
he's
me.
he's he's
Enlighten
really
me.
cool. He's really cool. He's kind of a folk artist, but he's like, that's just a really broad term for him.
Nice.
But his music is cool. I'll send you some stuff afterwards. But he would have been quite a shy person from
Yeah.
what I could see on social media, and he didn't really never put up his own picture and things like that. Um, and then I
Mm.
noticed a change in him. And it was actually after he had, I think he had a little boy, and I felt like, I don't know if it's like the whole birth of his son, like this helped him just be like, you know, I'm just going to be
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
And now he puts himself out there,
Yeah.
and he talks about his anxieties and his, his worries
Yeah.
and his, all those things. I think it's okay to like to share that stuff with people, because we're all so
Definitely.
similar. We really are. We don't have to be perfect all the
Definitely.
time. We don't have to be the
Definitely.
Beyonces of the world. Like, you don't have to be that person, you
No,
know?
definitely not. And I always think that when we we look up to these artists and these people we kind of aspire to be and so on, but although we might not see that projection of we just see the tip of their iceberg of success. We see who they are: mega successful, mega rich, mega whatever, and we don't realize that there was a huge journey to get to that point, and it did have the downs and the ups, and you have to go through that. Like, you know diamonds are made with pressure, corniest phrase ever,
I always
but
use that. I
yeah,
actually
me too.
do.
I've actually got it next to my sink. I've got like a little thing that's a gift that someone's given us where we keep our sponges and all that shit, and
Yeah,
and it says that on it, and I look at it every time like, yeah, yeah, I know.
I love it. Or
But yeah,
pressure is
I'm a
not
bit
for
corny at
tires
heart.
is another one. I don't know if that's more of an Irish one, but oh, no, pressure is only for tires. That's what it is.
It's only for tires, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, no, I think that's great that that guy, that the artist, he kind of maybe part of that, you know, coming a parent. You kind of, I was chatting to my dad actually weirdly about, being a parent. I'm not going to be a parent anytime soon, but we were just having a
You're
kind of
like,
heart to heart.
just putting it
Yeah,
out there.
I've got some
Woo!
news.
Surprise!
Yeah, exactly. Doing this live. Yeah.
I know, yeah.
But no, yeah, he was just talking about how that when you kind of become a parent, you start to think about yourself less, and sometimes I think when you kind of let go of needing to be kind of held up to a certain standard, you kind of, and especially I imagine like having a child, it kind of takes you completely out of your own headspace for quite a long time, and then suddenly you don't have that kind of insecurity anymore because you're like, well, I can't. I'm trying to be the best version of myself for my kids, so therefore I should be the best version of myself. And then, whoa, suddenly, that's kind of falls into place. And yeah, that I mean, it must be one of the most profound experiences that you ever have, kind of becoming a parent.
Yeah.
So I imagine that is a transformation, and I do overuse the word transformation maybe, but I do think that's kind of, when you're talking about like superheroes and how we think that artists are like that, and in a sense they kind of are a little bit like that. They are that kind of that person that dares to be, or that they have that strength of character, or they have that asset that we wish we had, and kind of like how there are heroes and legends in ancient songs and and folk and stuff like that. It's the same thing. It kind of relates to that kind of human need and desire to look up and kind of and gain it. So there's no harm in starting that journey now and kind of taking those steps and making those mistakes. And I think people want to be perfect straight away, and there is beauty in imperfections, like you were talking about. And obviously, ultimately, we're trying to make fewer mistakes as we get along. But don't worry about that. Like it's called playing music. It's about experimenting. This is why we do this. It's just reconnect with that love, with that passion again. And that's why I think it kind of comes down to that kind of identity and influence. And when you kind of understand your core values, this is almost a life thing. It's not even a music thing, right? What gets you out of bed? What's going to make you care about that thing that you do? It's kind of like when you realize the things that kind of get you going. When everybody has them, you're not always aware of them, right?
Absolutely. And I think as well, I know with social media, um, it kind of connects us with so many more people. Like, so we follow these people like that we admire and that inspire us or that motivate us or whatever it is. And why do we follow them? Because they're putting up content. Okay, I know the word content is a bit like shallow, but it's
Yeah.
content. It's like they're sharing music, they're sharing stories, they're opening up, they're showing everything, and that's why we follow them. So we should just put ourselves out there and like not fear it.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Sorry, my chair's a bit squeaky. I'm just going to
That's
move
all
it a
right.
bit.
I feel like I don't think artist development is like such a huge thing in Ireland. I definitely don't know any bands who've worked with any artist development coaches in Ireland. Um, but I guess I think I would imagine that
Mm.
artists like bands and solo artists might be maybe a bit afraid that like that you might take them and like change them into this thing that they're not, or like try and make them wear these certain clothes, or so how does that
Yeah.
work?
Yeah, I
How
mean,
much control do you have?
none. I think it's just like you're there to, I think it is kind of your role to kind of shake things up, but that doesn't mean it has to be that way. It's just like, if you've got to a point where you're feeling like you're doing things that are not making a difference, then of course you need something to come in and maybe readdress that. Just like you go to a doctor and be like, I'm doing this thing, and it's like, and they tell you something where you probably shouldn't do that. It's that part of your lifestyle is affecting that part of your health. I kind of see it as the same way. Obviously, I'm not a doctor or anything like
Mhm.
that, but you come to seek help from people when you kind of feel like you're doing some things, but they're maybe not working for you. So you kind of readdress that kind of strategy or model that you have. Um, but yeah, there's no kind of control. I always, some people kind of mistake me sometimes as like a manager, which I don't think I have the experience or the kind of current skill set to be. So it's not that at all. It's not kind of coming in and changing the game. It's kind of like it's like, I imagine it's similar to being an A&R, right? But you know, I feel like my stance is that I'm more of a creative, right, at heart, and kind of and at skill level. So rather than kind of being so focused on the business, I kind of try and tie in how you can be kind of creatively looking at your, you know, artist development, right? So it's
Hmm.
trying to make it not just a dry topic. You know, it's like, how do you kind of look at that from a foundational way, like, you know, looking at your identity or looking at your motivation, or maybe let's look at what kind of habits you're doing, like what's like your activity routine, what are you doing all the time, you know, how often are you writing songs, how often are you recording, how are you doing that, you know, it's like there are all these different parts, we just kind of do them automatically, and you don't, it's not, it'd be draining if you had to think, right, this is my timetable now, I'm going to do this. It's not really that. It's like looking at the overall picture, right? And seeing where there might be something that you're kind of not fully executing, or like maybe you kind of you're maybe you're like a performing artist, right? And you're in a covers band, and you've kind of got your project on the side, but it's not, you're not feeling the inspiration as much with it. So it's like, how do you kind of get back into that writer's self that you are, and kind of looking at different creative techniques, a way of overcoming potentially if you feel like you're in a writer's block, like how do you kind of get out of that? And that might be like, right, let's go back, let's look at your core values, let's look at your kind of identity, your influence, and then that might start informing your writing again, and kind of undoing those blocks. And you know, no one's perfect. I've been through stages myself, like where I've kind of, you know, lost touch with my kind of creative self, and I've become maybe too professional. And it's like, it's good to sometimes readdress your own way of doing things. Like maybe I have to go back a step to go forward too, right? Maybe I have to readdress, why am I kind of not feeling as motivated? Well, maybe it's because I'm spending too much time doing something that doesn't motivate me, which sounds stupid, but we're all privy to these things. We form a habit, we do it, and then we're like, oh, okay, well, actually, maybe that's not advantageous to be doing that anymore, sort of thing. So, yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many different things, and trying to be a constant explorer of your own process, you know, and look towards the next things as well as kind of and the back, and how are you goal setting and all this sort of stuff that I feel like almost kind of crosses over with your own personal development, which, you know, obviously you're well on the journey, you know, well the way through the journey. You're kind of juggling many balls of, you know, all in a focused direction, juggling many things, but like you're doing so many things to kind of develop these different things, you know, addressing your weaknesses maybe, and kind
Hmm.
of taking them forward. So yeah, it's that.
I feel like we all have the answers within us. That sounds very philosophical, but I really
Mm,
feel like we do have the answers within us. But
yeah,
sometimes the grind of daily life and the stresses and the kind of all the things that we're thinking about, and we're trying to find solutions to things on a daily basis. Our brain is too busy, and I feel like the artist development coach could really be the person to go, okay, it's almost like meditation. It's like the answers will come to you. Let's
yeah,
just try get the flow, and let's get those answers out of you. They're in there, but you know the right questions to ask. Sometimes
yeah.
we don't know the right questions to ask ourselves.
Definitely, definitely, and you know, it's a constant game of, you know, searching and then nurturing and trying to get, like, you know, feedback, people's opinions. So, you know, it's, I don't have all the answers by any stretch. You know, nobody does, right? And this is why you just keep trying new things. And if that's like working with, you know, an artist development coach, and looking at your creative development, but also maybe aspects of your kind of strategic development, then you know that's going to be a good thing for you to do. But maybe at the same time you don't need that, or you need something else. You know, you need maybe something maybe more with a publishing link, because you've found that the thing that motivates you the most is writing music and getting it out there, but maybe not for yourself, but also you just write loads of music. It could be
Mm.
that sort of thing. And I think we we see a template in the industry where it's like, we need to be the artist, or we need to be this, and we kind of become um, a solo character. We don't kind of have other aspects of the way that we have a career. Like, you know, you might be a songwriter, you might also be, you know, a session musician, you might also be all these things. And this really is what's going to drive you to kind of be your true artistic self. Because, you know, if you look at kind of your four centers in your life, You know, I go through this as kind of the beginning stages, and when I kind of try to initiate, you know, new people to understand their kind of core values. You know, look at like an Ikigai model, which is a Japanese kind of reason for being, where it looks at you know, the top stage, which is you know, what you're good at, what you're actually good at, what you love, your needs, and then at the bottom, like the reward that you're going to get in life. And kind of when these four, you know, concentric circles overlap, that's when you're kind of your truest self, right? And like you say, the answers are kind of within, and they are. And it's that kind of voyage into self-discovery where you kind of bring these things out, and you feel like, yeah, I'm doing the right thing, and suddenly things feel a bit more effortless, and you know, and but there's that kind of template where we think we have to be the artist. And actually, when you look at something in kind of four circles, you realize, wow, there's so many parts to my character, my personality, and I don't only need to be defined by that kind of one thing. You know, we're scared of being not generalist, but we're scared of having more than one attribute. We think we have to be specialist, but even look at like Beyonce's, they're like big business women. You know, they're obviously they're really talented performers, but they use loads of songwriters. So maybe that their skill is not so much in writing. You know, but they do have facets, and they do more than one thing. But we might only look at their kind of, you know, their kind of stronger identity, which might be their performing essence, right?
So Matt, tell me, have you got an artist that you've worked with that you felt so like you had like such a breakthrough moment with them, and maybe someone who's like who came such a long way and really that you really helped transform them? Have you got like, and you don't have to say their name if you don't feel comfortable, but even just if you have an example of someone that came in and they really just like took your advice and it turned around for them, and you know,
Yeah,
a success
definitely.
story is what I want to hear.
Yeah,
A success
success
story.
story. Yeah, great, love it. Um, I would say somebody kind of from last year that I worked with. She won't mind me mentioning her name. She's called Wren, and she was on the Voice Kids. Well, she was looking at going on the Voice Kids at the time. She'd already kind of released a bit of like a demo of her playing piano and singing, and she just has such a um, kind of a uniqueness to her voice, that I thought, you know, this is great. I'd love to work with this person. You know, they're keen to kind of, and they had something kind of specific to work on at the time, which is like, you know, I want to get through the audition stages. So we kind of looked a lot at, you know, performance coaching and her vocal identity, all things that, you know, are kind of important for kind of big competition, things like this. And I'm not by any means saying that these are the things you should be doing. I think it worked for her because she realized that she wanted kind of a bit of a challenge. Like, she was in kind of, you know, countryside part of the world, and she wanted something to kind of you know, challenge her. And I think she had a healthy mindset about that. She wasn't like you know, like, oh, I have to do this, this is my everything. She was like, I know I'm going to learn something through this. And at the humble age of, like, I think she was turning 15 at the time, I just thought, wow, this person is incredibly mature. And she, you know, I remember our first session, she just like plowed on. Like, we did like 2 hours in one, and I was like, wow, this, you know, this girl's got an exceptional work rate. And she's like hungry to learn, and, you know, just the kind of the right balance of everything. So um, yeah, the way what she kind of took on, I think through doing that, she got to the what's called like the battle stages, where you kind of, you're already in a team, and she was with Danny, and then at that point she didn't make any further, and like, it was a young Irish kid, actually, bloody Irish, no, a young Irish kid who, you know, he had stacks of charisma, and I think he sort of fit the show better, right? I wouldn't say, you know, that Ren was less good, because it's not, you can't really compare on these shows, but
No.
you know, he captured the audience better than she did. End of the day, right? And maybe her own sound didn't fit the bill quite as well, which is great. It's such a valuable thing to learn. Like, people realize that actually a no can be a yes in another part of your life. You know, we think we have to kind of have this straight trajectory. So anyway, after that project, she was writing, lots of music, and we'd have sessions where it'd be kind of very like, right, you're going to be doing this in front of a million people or whatever, the kind of pressure's on type thing. But
Just a million people.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, just look at the camera sort of thing. But yeah, huge amount of respect for her doing that. I think such a massive thing, and she's not like the most showy offy, confident, like she's not what you imagine. Like I went there when she went on her her last audition, and there's such a range of different kind of kids there, different backgrounds, different personalities, different sort of thing, and she's actually really quite meek, and she's she kind of has her own anxieties about things, and she's kind of very human, very relatable like that. She's awesome. And
You're a fan.
yeah, definitely a fan. Yeah, number one. No, but she took everything from the kind of the coaching side, and we did lots of kind of writing sessions together as well in between that. And then I didn't want her to feel like she'd failed or anything like that, because I really don't think she had. I think actually she kind of went on this accelerated curve, and then like everything in life, you can't keep going like that, right? There's either a down spike or a flat or whatever.
Yep.
And she left competition. Her grandfather sadly passed away during this time, and she just wrote an epic song that I was just like, wow, we need to record this, and why don't we also record an EP whilst we're at it? So she kind of just took all of this kind of in her stride, and I went to visit her to get her to kind of record, and then I brought her to a studio, and she worked with one of my producer associates, JP, and they kind of finished the production on these two of the songs. She recorded her voice in the studio, like her own project, her own vision, her own music. And I just think that at that age, and she just smashed it. I just think she really smashed it. And
She was open. She was like a sponge. She just wanted to learn.
exactly. She was like a sponge, and we all have those times where we can be hyper absorbed by something, like something really captures, and we're just really driven. And she massively took a step forward.
Wow.
She's doing a bit of her own stuff at the moment. Like she's exploring her own artist development. Really important. It's not about having someone handhold you the whole time. Sometimes I'll work with somebody for 3 months, for 6 months, or then they might come back after a certain amount of time, or whatever. It's kind of trying to work out from a consultation level what they need. Centered around them rather than me trying to sell them something, right? So yeah, Wren was just awesome, and you can go and check her out, like Wren Snaith, Snaith. She's on Instagram. She's got her stuff on Spotify.
I'll pop her links in.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And stuff. Yeah, that's cool though. Yeah, did they play one of her songs at one of the VIP podcast things or something?
Yeah,
I was thinking I recognised it. All right, she's a real kind of soft voice. Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Fab. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. She's not the sort of like top belter that you would get on a show like The Voice. Yeah, but exactly. I thought she had a voice, right?
Yeah.
Rather than it kind of being a focus on ability, which I think some of these competition shows, for better or for worse, do really focus on. They just focus on people who just can, sing ridiculously high notes, or riff all day,
out of it.
which wasn't really Wren's style, So so I just think that it was awesome for her to do it, because she learned stuff about herself, which is
amazing.
invaluable.
That's really cool. And you probably learned so much through the process with her as well as a coach.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Learning, all of our stuff was online, and this was before COVID, darling. So this was we were learning, how to write together, how to, it was hugely formative for me. I really thank her for the opportunity to work with her, which sounds like a weird thing to say to somebody many years your junior, but it's, it's not like that. When you're working on something together, it's a mutual thing.
Totally. I don't know what exactly you said, but a thought came into my mind about comparison. And I feel like that's probably one of the biggest killers of our artistic selves. If we compare ourselves to other, we're just not going to go anywhere, because we're not going to be anyone else. We can only ever be ourselves.
Sinead O'Connor, nothing compares to you, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Sweetly
little Irish
distilled
gal.
lyric. I know, little Irish girl, much wisdom about her. So yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. If
it's
we can all
mad.
think that about ourselves, nothing compares to you, then suddenly it's like, wow, there is no other me.
Mm.
Even with my
So,
boringness.
well, we're all boring sometimes, right? We
Yeah,
can't always
exactly.
be
Yeah,
like entertainers 24/7.
exactly.
But so I guess now we could talk a little bit about you've got this is how I ended up asking you to come on for a chat
Yeah,
because we were just chatting about the course and stuff. Our VIP course that we're
yeah.
both in training with, at the weekend, and you mentioned you have a course coming out, and I thought it'd be really nice to come on and like talk a bit about. We've kind of talked a lot about what artist development is and kind of how it can help an artist, so that will give people an idea of what they can get from a course like this. So do you want to tell people about the course?
Sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a course in progress. That's the way I like to think of it. And
Mm-hmm.
I've called it the Complete Artist Challenge because I feel like, for me, challenges really motivate me. If I can sink my teeth into a challenge and
Mm.
feel like I'm building up for something and then I'm kind of getting it back, that's great. So I've kind of broken this Complete Artist Challenge into a 7-day kind of continuous event. So it will be an opportunity for people to look at all the different aspects of their own artistry, develop their own artist development, and really kind of get back in touch with things so that basically for next year, 2021, they can hit the ground running, because I strongly believe that there is a desire for live music, there is a desire for musicians. We saw it at the beginning of lockdown when there was the worldwide Zoom um, video recording of the Foo Fighters cover, and I just think that like it's such a powerful thing, and basically people are missing it, and it's going to be wanting to come back in droves next year. So this is my kind of way to get people motivated, inspired again, and hopefully learn some practical things so that they can be ready for 2021. Make it a year of their career. That's what I'm saying.
I think this is like the perfect time for personal and self development and for a course like this because there are no gigs happening. You know, there's so much
Yeah.
that we can't do, but it's like use that time now to upskill, to practice, to have more time to be creative. You know.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And like, I'll just because people will be like, what is the challenges? I'll break it
Yeah.
down a little bit, which is basically like, I'd use a Imagine, which is like a little mnemonic of mine, which is a little kind of template, which is obviously 7 letters, IMAGI. I'm now reading it out loud because I'm dyslexic, NE, right? So, the first day's challenge is about kind of identity and trying to initiate that for them. So some people, on the challenge will be from different kind of levels of progress through their own artist
Mm-hmm.
development. So I'm kind of looking at overarching principles, and then people can hopefully apply that to any stage. So the first day will be, looking at that Ikigai model, which is Japanese. It's not mine. I'm just using it because it makes sense, and it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
looking at your core values and getting an awareness of maybe where you're going to start, or physically understand what you're trying to do here. Understand your why, I think, is so important. So that's what the first day is about. The second day, once you've got those core values, I think you can use them to create a bit of a motivational strategy for you. So if you look at these things that you like doing, you can kind of create habits from them. And I balance that out with the 3 core pillars that we kind of already discussed, so that they can try and apply that to their own artistry and their own artist development. Day 3 is kind of a bit of a more practical day, where I've called it the Activate Day, where we look at kind of training, where I kind of get into that day will be more about vocal coaching and performance sort of side of things. So might even be cool to have you come on that day and kind of give your 2 cents.
Yeah,
And
that'd be
then
lovely.
there's a day 4 is kind of a little bit of a rest day. It's about goals. It's about I've set people kind of their own kind of exercise under their own steam, and then I will be offering some kind of one-to-one sessions if people want to dive into those. Then day 5 is about inspiration, creativity. Like I said already, looking at different ways to assess your own creative development, whether that be kind of a songwriting, or it be like a personal thing, or whether that be um, performance creativity. And then day 6 is about nurturing a connection with an audience. So we kind of already talked about that, so I won't go into that too much. And then
Mm-hmm.
the final day is kind of explore day, like looking at your process, looking at your next steps, defining kind of what your stages of success are. And each of those days comes with a little kind of custom challenge, and people can go and check them out on Instagram or on the event landing page or whatever.
So just to give people an idea about like the format, so it's going to be
Yeah,
on Zoom, and is it
yeah.
like group, kind of a
It's a
group
group thing.
Zoom
Yeah, it will
session?
be very similar to what people can see here today.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from there might be a couple of slides, dependent on the session. Some days might be more interactive. But yeah, it'll
Mm-hmm.
be one hour a day of their time with me, and then as much time as they want to put in. I reckon no less than another hour. So people can dedicate 2 hours, which during this time a lot of people can quite easily do. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, the more they put in, the better it will be. And at the end of that, there will be a £250 coaching prize from me, which is voted by the other contestants. So it's completely, fair, non-biased. People will, just think, who's put the most effort in, or who's had the biggest transformation through this, or who's
Yeah.
challenged themselves the most.
So it's a real opportunity to network with other like-minded people, people who are on maybe similar paths, maybe at
Yeah,
different point in the path, but similar,
yeah,
and to exchange ideas and to brainstorm and to be inspired and
yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
All of that good stuff. I will. I might even change some of the challenges if I feel like the group are too good or whatever. Or
Mm-hmm.
so it's not fixed. Each of those days will be about those topics, but the challenges might vary slightly, just kind of dependent on what people need to challenge them. Right?
Yeah, I love it. And I think that's what I love about the VIP pathway is the
Mm,
fact that you can connect with other people who are on a similar pathway to you, and you can learn from them, and you can ask them questions, and then you realize, oh, so the things I was worried about, they're worried about too, and you can ask advice and
yeah.
be motivated and learn, and it's so much so beneficial working in group situations, when you can really like connect with other people, and you never know, you might end up working with them in the future, like you might end up doing a collab or something. That'd be
Exactly,
cool.
and that's it. It's all about collaboration, baby. So I think like as much people can get out of the challenge itself, they'll get out of the people, they'll get out of there's already people on the the sign up list who are kind of from different sides of artistry, like people who are kind of DJ singers and kind of in electronic music. There's people who are in just kind of vocalists, R&B, like just like different worlds completely, kind of, so, and different disciplines. Not It's not only just about singing, but there's a lot about singing in the kind of activation day. So yeah, there's
Mm.
stuff for everybody there, and I really wish the best for people, and I want to help people. It's a difficult time to be a musician right now, and anything that we can do to help a brother or a sister out, I think is a great thing. So that's kind of my motivation for doing it, and to challenge myself, obviously.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much value in us as coaches as well,
Yeah,
putting on these courses and trying things out because we learn so much ourselves, and it's all about continuous professional
yeah,
development. We always want to be learning. We want to try and be sponges for as long as we could possibly be.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I added a link directly to your webpage with that talks all
Nice,
about the course, and people can sign
cool.
up at that link as well if they want to.
Yeah,
So like, really do go and check it out. If you're somebody who is on your artist journey at any level, and you feel like you might be inspired by, or like get something from taking a course like what Matt is putting on, then check it out and sign up because Matt's a cool guy, and I
do it
think
by
now is like
yourself.
a perfect time for doing any kind of these courses. So
Cool. That's so so kind of you to say, and thank you so much. I really enjoy everything that you're doing. I'm looking forward to learning with you as well on this journey, Rebecca. It's great, and thank you so much for giving me some airtime.
you're welcome. God, I'll just share this now, but I think I mentioned to you in our chat at the weekend, but like doing this podcast was kind of a part of my own personal development,
Mm,
and I wanted to kind of put myself out there and just break through any anxieties I had about doing that, and it
good on
definitely
you.
is helping.
Yeah.
I'm growing from it. So
Exactly. That's
yeah,
why we do these mad things, isn't it? Because we
yeah,
know that through this pain and all this kind of fear, actually, will become something else. So yeah.
yeah. Telling you, we're going to be some shiny diamonds at the end of this. Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm hoping to have somebody else on maybe next week or the week after, so keep an eye on the page. Matt, if you want to like hang on for a second and we can just have a quick
Of course.
debriefing
Yeah, yeah.
after I
I'd be
finish the
sad if
live
we
thing
didn't.
here. Thanks a million, guys, and I will chat to you soon.